Hello everyone and welcome back to the Property Podcast Today show. I'm your host Lee Dahill, as you know, and today I have Sally Lawson. I've listened to Sally live. I was blown away. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to let Sally do her own introduction. Sally, over to you to tell us a little bit about you, what you get up to, and then we'll go into some of the questions I've got set up for you today. So over to you, Sally.
Okay, it's always weird doing your own introduction, isn't it? Okay, so my name is Sally Lawson. I've been in the industry for over 35 years, which sounds terrifying. I've been a letting agent since 1990 and still own that business today. I own a couple of letting agencies. I was formerly a franchisor, formerly president of ARLA, and I launched Agent Rainmaker in 2016. We've now coached literally hundreds of agents to increase their revenue, optimize their business, and we've helped agents add over £78 million in additional revenue at the last count, which was November last year. And that is 350 agents adding over collectively £78 million. So we like to talk about how to increase revenue, how to increase profit, how to streamline, how to systemize, and that's our speciality. So yeah, that's what we do.
So it's fantastic. And I was at an event and you was live on the stage and you was talking about some of that stuff. So I'm really pleased to have you on the show because some of the questions obviously are geared around helping. So to kick things off on the first question, let's address the elephant in the room with the Renters' Rights Bill. Do you think it spells disaster for the PRS? Because there are a lot of landlords that think it does. What are your thoughts?
My quick answer is no. I can remember the tenant fee ban when we all thought that was disaster and life was over and we would not be able to continue and 20 to 30% of our profit was going to disappear and we were all doom and gloom, and we survived it. We got through it. And in fact, most agencies now are in a better position than they were before the tenant fee ban. I also believe that legislation is our friend. I've said this for over a decade now. Legislation is our friend. When there's more legislation, landlords need us more. So I believe this is going to get people to use agents more, although we have to educate them into that. So I think the Renters' Rights Bill opens up an opportunity. I always see opportunities, not obstacles. There's an opportunity here for us to be better, for us to embrace everything that is coming, evolve our businesses and make the changes that we need to make to maintain and manage a highly profitable, successful business, whilst also helping our landlords to run profitable and successful portfolios, which also is going to require a change as well. So I think with evolution, with change, then yes, the Renters' Rights Bill is going to be an opportunity for us. But if we sit and do nothing and change nothing, then of course that will be a problem.
Change does equal opportunity, Sally, and I definitely think you're right in that people will look for expertise, people will look for things of how to help. What does it mean? What does it mean for me? And if you're able to there guide them, it's going to position you in a good position. So I think that's good advice. My next question for you, Sally, is on how should independent letting agents adapt to survive and thrive in the evolving landscape of the rental market?
It's a great question. Well, one of the big things with the evolving landscape that we talk about is a really interesting stat that I actually learned from the white paper that came out. I think it was 2022, actually, when the government released that white paper. And that white paper stated that 82% of landlords do not use letting agents for full managed services. So what that means is we've got 19,000 letting agents in the UK. There is 1.1 million rent landlords and 4.4 million rental properties. However, 19,000 letting agents are chasing 18% of, which is about 180, 200,000 of those landlords. Now, it doesn't make sense. We are ignoring the 82% that aren't using us because we're not marketing to let-only landlords. We don't want let-only landlords. We want fully managed landlords. So in answer to how we evolve, we have to start to serve whole of market. We have to start to create services that landlords want that aren't using us for full managed services. So we have to start to think about how we can start to reach out to different types of landlords, different types of avatars at different stages in the landlording journey, and really help those landlords coming into the market, as well as those wanting to get out of the market, insert ourselves in the middle with a service and various other different ways so that we can start to monetize, optimize, capitalize and profit from this, but also serve our landlords and the not using us landlords to be able to get into, get out of, or make the market more palatable. And we hold the key to that. And certainly letting agents agents I see, they just do lettings and management. You know, we let houses and we do fully managed. Yes, we were doing that in 1980. It's 2025, and those are still the services that most letting agents offer. Some might do rent collect, some might do estate agency property sales, but it doesn't really go much further than that. And so for all these landlords that are in the 82%, we're just irrelevant to them. And my worry is if we don't evolve and don't change, it's a bit like dodos jumping off a cliff. You know, we're just walking to our own surmise. It was 50% of landlords used agents for fully managed services 10 years ago. Now it's 18% of landlords use agents for fully managed services. Where's it going to be in 10 years' time if we don't make a change? And so we've personally, in our branches, we've changed our targets to serve 3 different types of landlords: let-only landlords, selling and buying landlords, and landlords that have properties to let. And we've got to evolve. So it's not just about lets anymore. It's about serving those different avatars. So the answer is evolution, and it's creating additional services. Every letting agency, should have, in my belief, around 16 different services. And it's about getting those different services embedded, making sure your staff know what those services are, and understanding that. I'll give you an example. We had one of my new staff I was talking to and doing some training, and I said, you know, you've got a landlord who comes to you and he hasn't bought a property yet. What would you offer them? She says, free valuation. I says, well, he hasn't bought the property yet. And she goes, oh, no, okay. And then I said to the next member, the other new starter at the same time, I said, what would you offer them? She says, I only know free valuation. What else could we offer? And so it's training your staff to understand that it's not all about free valuation, which has been around since the 60s and 70s, by the way. It's about having different offers, different services to suit different landlords with different needs. And that's how we're going to survive, and that's how we're going to thrive, and that's how we're going to get past the next 10, 20 years, is by not just being one-trick ponies with lettings and management. So that's the key, and that's what I'm constantly banging the drum about and have been since 2018. Additional services, different avatars, different client types. Build out your business offering, so it's not just 1 or 2 things.
Just on the avatars, can you sort of walk us through the main categories of landlords and how agents should tailor their marketing and services to each group?
Yeah, well, the thing to think about is whenever you're looking at evolving any services, think about a landlord's journey. There's a point in the landlord's journey where he's not actually a landlord yet. He's thinking about being a landlord. So he's looking to buy property. He wants to replace his income. He wants to build a portfolio. He wants to create the dream. He wants to live on his rental flow. What services do letting agents offer for that guy? And the answer is not a lot. And then you have the landlord that's got the property. He's let only because he's read on Google that he doesn't need letting agents. He can do it all himself with a little bit of ChatGPT and a bit of downloading a tenancy agreement off the internet and stuff. So he's doing fine. Yep. But then he's going to come across some challenges. And what are those challenges? Well, of course, they will tell you that, don't you? I actually had somebody the other day was going to be, I've got a solution when a tenant doesn't pay, I send me mates around. I was like, oh my God, don't tell me my ears are. No. But you get the gist. So think about all the challenges that these guys are going to face. They are going to face all sorts, from rent arrears, difficult tenants, don't know how to serve a notice, forgot to do the gas cert, all those sort of different things. What are we doing to serve them? The answer is nothing. We're not doing anything to serve them, but we could be doing portfolio transfers, we could be doing takeovers, we could be doing all sorts of different support for these guys, but we're not offering them at the moment. Then we have the let only. So we've got the let only guys that are in trouble, but you've got the let only guys that aren't in trouble, that haven't got any pains, that don't have any problems, that believe everything's fine. Absolute true conversation. I was talking to a let only landlord that had 5 HMOs. He had 26 rooms. So various people living in each property, and they were in Article 4 area. I said, do you know your property's in Article 4? He said, what's Article 4? And I'm like, oh my God, this is scary. A lot of them don't know what they don't know. And so it's our duty to actually help them understand the fears and the risks and the challenges of the things that they don't know, because it's in the discovery. Actually, you've got 4 properties in an Article 4 area. You're not licensed as a HMO. You haven't done your gas certs. You didn't do this. What's the how to rent guide? All those things. Those are the things that are going to trigger them to realize that actually they need fully managed services. And that's where you're talking, again, a transfer service. So you have let only landlords that got themselves in trouble, let only landlords that haven't and believe everything's fine, but they are a disaster waiting to happen. With Renters' Rights Bill, there's going to be a lot of those because they're really not compliant now, And then with the renters' rights bill, it's going to get worse, and we know evictions are going to get harder and everything else. So that's a key thing. Then, of course, you have the landlords selling and you have the landlords buying. So you've got the landlord, we talked about the landlord buying, but there's another end of the journey at the moment as well. Another interesting stat for you. From talking to the people in our room, which is a few hundred people over the last 6 months, we've identified that 25% of the properties vacating every month, so if you had 10 properties vacating this month or 20 vacating this month, 25% of those properties vacating are going on the market for sale. 25%. Wow. That is a massive number. So 25% of your landlords, when their property becomes vacant, are going, hands up, I'm going to sell it. What are you doing about that? So I keep hearing letting agents all over the land saying, oh, we're losing property stock, landlords are selling, landlords are selling. I said, what are you doing about that? The answer is they're passing it to their sales department rubbing their hands, going happy days. We've got a new sales instruction. They're selling the property, and the lettings department are crying because they've lost another property under management. So my answer to that is, if you've got landlords buying and you've got landlords selling, then what are you doing to put the two together? Now they think, oh, well, let's put on the sales market and we'll find some investors. No, you need to actively market for investor buyers, and you need to get them to sign a contract that they will rent through you for the first 2 years. Get them to sign a management contract before you introduce them to a property. Now, if it's on the open market for sale, you can't do that. But if it's on your off-market list, then you can. So if you want access to my off-market list of landlords selling, you sign this 2-year contract to use us for management, happy days, you've got yourself a sale. And you'll make more from that than you will a sale, and you'll make more from that than you will on letting the property the first couple of years anyway, but you're going to get that tied into the process. So you want to have a service for landlords selling, you want to have a service for landlords buying, and you want to insert yourself in the middle of that. You've also got landlords retiring. They're looking to restructure their portfolio because they're getting old, or they want to sell some, or they want to pass some to management, or they've got a wife's taken over and she doesn't even know what the properties are or where they are. So you've got the landlords retiring. You've also got landlord restructure. A lot of the clients we're dealing with now, they bought their properties between 97 and 2002. But of course, their mortgages are coming up. They haven't got the funds to pay off those mortgages, so they're having to sell some and keep some. They're too old perhaps to get remortgages. All those are issues which you can dive into and help and sort. That literally, there is loads. There is loads of things that you can do. But letting agents just see lettings and management. And we haven't gone down the road even of talking about housing benefit and HMOs and asylum seekers and contracts with the councils and working with corporate landlords as well to provide services. There's so much you can do. To just sit there and do lettings and management is a travesty. It really is a travesty. And it's like being in the 80s. And I keep saying it's not the 80s anymore. Madonna is not number one. We don't drive Cortinas. It's time to move on to the new age.
Time to move on. So let's talk about some practical terms on how letting agents better market to the niche landlord segments, such as accidental or ones that have got problem tenants. What advice would you give?
It's marketing. It's purely marketing. And I'm going to be a little bit sarcastic here. I can remember in the 90s when we first started trading, in the 80s when I started working in the industry, we used to run an advert that used to say, landlords wanted, tenants waiting. And yet now I see people sending leaflets that go, landlords wanted, tenants waiting. Did you know we've got 1,000 tenants registered? I mean, my God, it's changed. It's moved on. In marketing, there's 2 words you need to remember. And if you're listening to this, if you get a chance to write it down, please write it down. But the 2 words that are really important to remember are specificity, which is just like the word specific with itty at the end, specificity. It's a difficult word to say, but I have to practice it. And secondly, congruency.
Yep.
The marketing has to be congruent to the offer. So if you're going to go down the line of specificity, see, I'm getting my tongue tied, specificity, and you want to market to a landlord who's perhaps coming up to retirement and he wants to restructure his portfolio, would you put an ad out going, landlords wanted? No. You'd put, are you looking to retire as a landlord and need to restructure your portfolio? Click here and find out about our landlord restructure process or service or offer or whatever the case may be. And then it would drive them, this is where congruency comes in, would drive them to a landing page which talks specifically about landlord retiring, restructuring his portfolio. But I see so often people just driving out to their website, which says nothing about the thing they've run an ad to. It's non-congruent. I see so many just going, landlords wanted, You've got to be more specific. What sort of
Yes.
landlord do you want to buy a property? Landlord, a landlord that wants to sell? Do you want a landlord that wants to restructure? Do you want a landlord that wants to retire? A landlord that's got a problem with a tenant? Do you want to? What sort of landlord do you want? You have to be specific, and that has to be congruent if you're running an ad to the page that you're driving them to, not just your homepage of your website where they start looking at about us and all that sort of rubbish and whatever. You've got to be specific and you've got to be congruent. And the answer is how you can niche your landlords is market for them, offer a service for it, market for them, be specific, be congruent, happy days. You will start to get the full 100% of landlords coming through your door as opposed to just the 18%, which is a declining percentage.
It is. And Sally, just touching on that about the website structure, you said about the homepage about us. With that, what sort of how much do you think the website as a structure in the customer journey play for sort of like successfully converting leads? And do you see any common mistakes that agents make here?
As you probably know, I'm not a fan of websites. I have a word for them, but I'm not going to say it here because we're recording. But websites are basically, I mean, I've got one, we all have them,
Yes.
and they are necessary. And if you haven't got one, you will look like you don't exist. So they are absolutely essential. So I start with saying that SEO, fantastic, get yourself up there rankings as best as possible. Make sure you cover all your services, make sure they're up to date, all key things that obviously we've seen mistakes with, not having your fees on there. That's a common thing that's missed off. All these things are important. But are they important in the customer journey? They're there as a reference. They're an online brochure. What I like to see, and if you look at our websites, what I like to see is data capture mechanisms. I know you guys have Valpal, for example, valuation tool. You need that all over it. You need opportunities for people to click and opt in, click and opt in, click and opt in, click and opt in. And so we call these funnel sites. So it's when your website has every single page, there's an opportunity for them to click and download, click and book a call, click and opt in, click and whatever. Every single page needs to have a data capture tool mechanism on it. Then all of a sudden the website becomes interesting, because then you're going to have a funnel site where you can just use it to funnel people into your database. Of course, your staff need to be trained how to deal with these leads because they're different. But yes, then websites can become a lot more interesting than just being a brochure site.
I love that, Sally. And I think that that's such good advice to have, multiple different things on different pages, different reasons, and each person that comes through is a different lead. Say, for example, a valuation lead of someone who's just wants to find out how much their property's worth versus someone who's looking at selling right now versus someone who's downloaded a brochure of a checklist of how to get the most out of their home for dressing it up. I'm making this stuff up, obviously, but each one of them has a different way of dealing with it, and you can't deal with them all the same. I think that's fantastic advice. The next question for you is around, do you think letting agents charge enough for their services, and how should they go about reviewing and restructuring their pricing models? I've got some corkers today for you, Sally.
You have, and you've been to my conference. You know damn well what my answer is to this. Okay, so letting agents on the Plimsoll report, the average, on the Plimsoll report, the top 1,000 letting agents in the UK, that's the top 1,000 letting agents in the UK, make a profit of 11.9%. That's the top. Now, I've worked with hundreds of letting agents now over the last 14 years, and actually the average seems to be less than that. So a lot of letting agents are just covering costs. Some are even putting money into the business, so they're paying the business to stay in business, which I think should be a criminal offence. It's crazy. But we end up where we end up. Now, the reason that 11.9 is the best and the lowest is putting money in is because the answer to your question is no, we don't charge enough for what we do. But there's two things you can look at. There's two ways to make more money. First of all is to charge more. Easy, just put your fees up. But that's not easy to do, and landlords are going to complain. Number two, offer more services. These landlords are paying someone for these things, they're just not paying you. So if you start offering additional services and you can make an extra £1,000 a year for landlord for doing something, refurb service, furniture service, property staging service, additional photography, social media blasting, you insert whatever you want to insert in there. If you can make an extra £1,000 per sale, per let, per property, whatever per year, you've just doubled your revenue, or near as damn it doubled your revenue in most of the country. And the next way is put your fees up, additional services, and the third way of doing it is to reduce the amount of time it takes to do the task. And so, of course, what we're talking about there is automation, streamlining, outsourcing, utilizing tech, VA, applications, all of that stuff. So we should be looking at all of those things, really. And when we've helped agents, you've probably seen the ads, which always seem too far unbelievable. How could they add 100K in 6 weeks? How could they add 500,000 in a year? Because they've done those things. They've gone and they have increased some of their fees. In most cases, they have added a range of additional services, usually up to about 16 different services. They have streamlined the bottom end, and we've had a lot of, particularly estate agents, that have gone from 35 staff down to 18 and increased their revenue by 50%. Because they're not effective, they're not efficient, they're wasting time. They've got salespeople doing admin. You've got directors doing viewings and valuations. We've got silly little tasks. We've got staff that are directors that are learning how to do Facebook ads. I know you do an ad service. It's crazy. It's so complicated. You need to have specialist people do this. They're learning how to video edit. No, hire somebody or pay someone or outsource it or get an app or get some tech or whatever. And so it's really important that we look at the top end. I believe the two things to look at outsourcing or getting off your desk at the top end, really complex stuff, videography, ads, financial, like accounting. The top end things, get experts that do that for you. And at the bottom end, the low-level tasks, the VAs, there's a great piece of kit called Convergence, which will do what any VA can do, or get VAs or low-level admin staff or some tech or software automation like FixFlow for your maintenance out of hours. That's get out of hours management service to have your phone, like we use Adiuvo, for example. Those phone calls into the office. We got rid of all those phone calls out of the office from tenants because we're getting 250 a day into our branch. We got rid of those using Agent Response. They're just suppliers that we've used. Get that stuff out of your office. If you look at my branch, I have it's a £1 million turnover branch, 6 staff. It outsources the tenancy management, the client accounting, the new tenancy admin, the sales progression, the Facebook ads, the video editing. All they do is service the clients. Landlord comes in, tenant comes in, put the two together, and we even have like Agent Response and VAs doing most of that front end bit there. They put the two together, but they're offering multiple services. So these staff have to be trained how to deal with a landlord selling, a landlord buying, a landlord restructuring, let owners fully managed conversion, compliance, landlord education. They're dealing with all that stuff. So my staff have now become high-level staff because the lower level stuff is out and the upper level stuff is out, so they can just focus on getting good quality leads, good quality tenants, putting the two together and servicing those high value landlords. And our revenue per landlord has doubled in the last few years by doing that, because we now offer all these different services, whether it be refurbishments or quiet acquisitions or whatever, all these different services. And that's as a result of just making that change. But what a lot of people do is they try and keep everything in-house because it's free, but it's not free, because the one thing that you sell, and I say this all the time, what do you sell? And people come up with all sorts of answers, but the answer is you sell time. You buy people's time and you sell time. And so therefore, if you spend time doing a Facebook ad, spend time answering the phone 250 times, spend time with the out-of-hours phone trying to deal with maintenance or whatever, what you're doing is you're doing yourself out of revenue, because that's time. You could be building additional services. You could be helping a landlord restructure. You could be using all that knowledge and the expertise you've got in your brain to actually increase revenue, increase profitability, create additional services, etc., etc. So, pretty scary. So I've forgotten what the question was. But anyway, does that answer your question?
It does indeed. I've got a follow-on for it.
Go on in.
About
what was the first one?
The first one.
Are we charging enough? That was it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. My next one is on. You've touched on it there, which is about the sort of bolt-on services. About increasing revenue and things. So, what types of those services are most in demand you're seeing for landlords that agents should be looking at?
Our biggest winner is let only to fully managed conversion. We've been banging the drum on that one since 2018, getting let only landlords to convert to fully managed. And you don't do that by going on a valuation and going, you need to go fully managed, because they're going to say to you, yes, but Sally, I've been doing it for 20 years and I've never had a problem. I don't need your services. I've got a tenancy agreement I downloaded in 1997. They don't believe that they need you at that point. So that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is people with existingly occupied property properties. These are usually portfolio landlords that have 10, 20, 30 properties, think they have everything fine. You're going to make them realize it's not fine. And they're going to go, oh my God, £30,000 fine times 5. I didn't realize, this is scary. I didn't know what the HHSRS was. Oh dear me, I want you to convert to fully managed. That's our number one winning strategy at the moment, because it's just growing property stock without even having to let the property. You're just getting, and when they come, they're in chunks of 10, 20, 30. So we're doing at least 10 of those a month in our Wolverhampton branch, for example. We want to get that to 20 a month and 30 a month, you know, and it will replace lets eventually, I imagine. But that's been a mainstay of business for a lot of agents now. And the other one, of course, is that's probably the number two, I would say, is helping landlords buy. You know, you put an advert out for investors looking to buy. We had 177 register with us in a weekend, and it was a £10 a day ad spend. It was insane, absolutely insane. So people think there's nobody buying, but I'm telling you they are. And of course, every area in the country is different. There's more people buying up north than they are down south. There's more people buying multiple units than single units, etc., etc. But there is a lot of people still buying. And that is a great way to insert yourself into the buying and selling and process, make a 2% fee off the landlord that's buying. Then you're going to get a 2-year contract with that. Your landlord who's selling is happy because he can walk away. Your landlord's buying happy because he's got a new property with a guaranteed return because it's already occupied. It's a nice way to insert yourself into the process and get a nice new fresh landlord that's got their portfolio structured in a tax efficient way, which is the problem, because that's the reason why most landlords are selling, because they're personally owned, non-tax efficient. And therefore, when your new landlord comes in, got it all structured tax efficiently, he's going to be happy to stay with you for a few years. And you're just recycling your landlords, not your properties. You're recycling your landlords. So those two, I would say, are the two things to really focus on, because they will replace your lets. You know, in the old days, we used to go 35 lets a month, 35 lets a month. Now it's about 15 lets a month, but we've got another 10 takeovers, another 10, you know, on market, off market purchases. So it is changing. It is very much changing.
Okay. And with all the compliance requirements and penalties and all of those things that are going to be on the rise, how can letting agents position themselves as indispensable experts for landlords worried about legislation? Have you got any advice for them? I know you sort of just touched on it, but is there anything else?
Yeah, it absolutely has to be education. So I jokingly say to my rooms and letting agents, I go, do you want your landlords to learn from you, or do you want them to learn from me? And they go, me? And I go, okay, how many videos have you got out? How many podcasts do you do? How many blogs do you write? How many social media posts do you put out? What landlord seminars do you run? What landlord webinars do you run? Who are your landlords in your town learning from? And they go, and I said, well, if it's not you, then it's somebody else. So the answer is landlord education. There's, you know, I love the lettings industry. I mean, I've been in it a long time, so I must love it. And the one thing that I really loved about lettings when I first came to it was always changing. You never knew from one day to the next what you were doing. The legal landscape, what was it? 170 pieces of legislation last time we counted, and it was just constantly. But it's what I loved about it. And I always find fascinating when letting agents go to a conference, like the ARLA conference, for example. Of course, we've all been to it many, many times. You know, they go, oh, the legal section next, and they get all excited because, you know, Robert Bolwell was coming up, or, you know, was it Mary Payne Smith or whatever her name was? And, you know, they would always get really excited at the legal section. We love the legislation. We love the legals. We get excited about it, which is weird, I know, but we get excited about it. But then when I say to them, right, so we need to educate your landlords. Oh, no, I couldn't do that. Yeah, but you know subsection 2.4 of the Housing Act, and you know this, and you know that, and you know the other, inside out. Who would you rather they learn from? Oh, no, but I don't like to see my face on camera. Oh, no, I don't like to hear my own voice. Oh, no, well, I don't write very well. Well, hey, there's a thing called HeyGen. There's a thing called ChatGPT. There's great bits of tech and all sorts of stuff that you can use nowadays. Let's just get with the program. We've got to start educating our landlords. There's no point having it all in here in our head. We've got to get it out of here. And we've got to get it out there into the ether, because it's only when landlords learn from you that they have got a property in Article 4, that it is a HMO with 26 people living in it, by the way. And when they realise the Renters' Rights Bill isn't just going to be an extra bit of paperwork, there's a lot of big changes there, that's when you're going to start to see landlords coming to you. But it's not going to happen unless you get yourself out there. So, you know, social media's been around now for 14 years. I've been on it since 2010. I was one of the only people you come across when you put lettings in 2010 to 2012. I've been doing it a long, long time. If you haven't got onto it yet, maybe now's the time.
Yep.
Otherwise, there'll be a hologram Sally in a town near you soon doing it. I'm joking.
I
Maybe
hope
not.
not. I'd like that. I'd like that. Do you know one of the things, that classic knowledge is power? For me, I heard it years ago, and it's always stuck with me. Can't remember where I heard it, but knowledge is only powerful if you use it. And it's what you just said. If it's in your brain and you're doing zero with it, it's not powerful, is it? It's not being used. It's not. No one knows that you've got that unless you're going to use the knowledge you've sat the time and spent the time and put all the effort in. It's not valuable. It's only valuable to you. You want to make sure that other people know it's valuable.
It's also
So
understanding your own worth as well. Because I think the letting agent, if you said that to them, they said, but I do use it. I do it to make sure I manage my properties efficiently. Yeah, great. How about using it for marketing?
that's what I mean.
I've been
That's
using,
what I mean.
and that's like, and I've been using it. I've been using legislation for marketing for over 10 years now. It is the number one thing that will get landlords to you, is by making them realize what they don't know. And only you can do that. And it's about getting out there and just making them aware that they don't know everything. And that downloaded tenancy agreement from 1997, well, that wouldn't have been downloaded. It would have been bought in 1997. They've photocopied 1,000 times. It's probably not sufficient nowadays.
No. And my final question, Sally, is let's imagine we've got one of those beautiful crystal balls and we can, look into the future. So do you have confidence in the letting sector for the future?
I have a rather long answer for that, if that's okay.
Go on, Sally.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I have confidence in the letting sector, but it's not going to look like it does now. So I think the letting sector, I'm married to an IFA, financial advisor, and in 1980 something, forgive me, I can't remember the year, but in 1980 something, the financial services sector became regulated, and you had to have all these raising exams and everything to operate in the financial services sector. And what happened is the banks withdrew from financial services, a lot of IFAs drew from financial services, and to cut a long story short now, 80% of the financial advisors left the market. So what's happened is the ones that have remained, have created phenomenal businesses. And I actually think that's what's going to happen to the letting agency world. I think we're seeing some behemoth of businesses coming through. There's a lot of acquisitions going on with the big boys acquiring the small agents. I think the government is forcing us small agents to do things like the big agents, which means the economies of scale just aren't there. It's not economical to do that. I think technology is forcing us to outsource and be innovative and to evolve and to change. The landlords have already evolved and changed, and we haven't caught up or kept up with them, the 82%. And so what I see as the future is those that remain will be good, awesome, solid, big, profitable businesses. And the ones that don't evolve will go by the wayside or be eaten up or taken over by the competition. So I think my word here is yes, but we have to evolve and embrace change and embrace outsourcing, tech, AI, software, all that sort of stuff, marketing, whatever. We have to change. And those that do will win. And we're seeing it already. We've got agents adding 6-7 figures to their business with just some small tweaks, whilst other agents are going, no, I'm not doing that. Now that'll never work for me. I've always done it this way. Why change? Good luck. That's all I can say, because the cliff is up there and we're walking towards it. And unless we do a U-turn and start to change things, then we're going over. So yes, I have confidence, but it will change. It will evolve. We have to be better. And those that do will succeed. Those that don't, in short, won't.
Sally, I really like that. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all your insights with us. I hope that the listeners have found this as useful as I have. And Sally, I'm really, really grateful. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much, Lee.